we'll just cap it off with this is with what Don told me was the wing rules that are in place today with the World of Outlaws and the High Limit and everybody else out there are in place because of a guy named Ricky Warner.
Green flag in the air.
I don't know what year it was that you came to the family shop up there with Don. Was it 96 that far back, or would it be closer to 2004?
Well, 2002, I was down south, so it had to be 3 or 4.
Okay, so it might have been then. He said that that Linton Jeffrey had given him a wing to try. You know, and Linton was just a young kid trying to get going. And Don's like, well, you know, we've got our other deal going. It was just kind of sitting in the corner. And you came back that winter, and you took a look at that wing, and you got it all ready, Don said, and said, let's go race with this thing. And that was pretty much the beginning of Wing Wars, as it was called. Tell us just a little bit about how that went out and what you guys learned, what you can share right now and you can't share, but obviously there was some advantages in that top wing.
Yeah, I mean, that particular wing, and you're not allowed to run anymore, so it doesn't matter talking about it. You know, it was built out of square, you know, in a different way the boards were done. I think back then we were running, it wasn't a wicker bill, it was, you know, the 6-inch dish deal in the back. And just the way the boards were placed on it, as far, I think, you know, TP and Vortex back then were the two biggest ones. You had other guys, you know, some guys out of Pennsylvania, other deals floating around that were building stuff, but I think the first night we put it on, you know, the way it makes a car get into racetrack and stuff, Don goes, we just need to run this thing all the time, you know, because I don't feel like that with the other wing on. So you just get looking at stuff of what's different, you know, and yeah, I mean, that whole year everybody got that deal, and we were turning them and opening them up, and the boards were up in the back and staggered, and you know, the right board was all the way back, and just doing all the stuff that was in, you know, the right board out. I mean, back then the rule, they used to walk up with a broomstick and put it on your right rear, and your right sideboard couldn't be out any further than that. You know, so now it has to be 90 to the belly. So anybody that kind of can figure out where the board sits and where you can go out to, that, I mean, it's probably a good 5-8 inches you could turn the bottom of the right sideboard out. You know, and not knowing that until later when we used to got a chance to take it to the tunnel, it was like 200 pounds of right rear weight. You know, now that's unheard of. You know, most of the time when you turn the wing, it's trying to pull you off the right rear. So it, you know, just it was a fun time to try different stuff. And, you know, and the better you get, the more confidence you have of trying stuff. So we tried a lot of stuff, you know.
And then when you say we, it was your team, but that's kind of what got Linton his name to fame. Was the Vortex wings were the way to go there. And I remember the TP, but boy, Linton stuff sure took off there for a while too.
Yeah, you know, he does his homework. He knows what's going on with that stuff. And, you know, it's just, and then you try to keep it in your camp of guys, you know, and you know how that works. Guys will get a wing from him, and then they got their guy to copy it. Or just, you know, and stuff got out that way. But, you know, we were, you know, it definitely raised the bar on our car when we switched to them. So it just put your car in the racetrack a certain way, and you know, it ended up, you know, for us having a lot of wins using that wing.
So another thing with the top wing was, I was told by Don, was the fact that back then you guys, when you would go to the infield, you know, for the work area at the end of the night, a lot of you guys would take your top wings in before the races even started. You just had another one sitting there. And one night, somebody from your team, or maybe you, looked down and you got 2 or 3 of these other crew chiefs over there literally measuring up your wings. It's a compliment now, but what's the initial reaction when you see that going on?
Oh, you want to beat their ass. You know, you know, I think we were PRI one year, and I caught, you know, Dan Lasowski in there measuring when we walked out, and I forgot something, you know, something we put in the seat, and I went back to get it, and they're standing on the right rear measuring the wing. You know, and back then, you know, Canes were doing stuff with theirs, you know, just different guys. They're just trying to get an edge. So everybody had a little bit different stuff. But when you were, you know, as dominant as Don was back then, you know, they're looking at everything you do. I mean, we had header stuff going on the wing deal. It's, you know, just a lot of stuff we could do back then. It made it really fun.